Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Well, here we are in the state of Oregon and, well, throughout the country, actually, counting down to Election Day. And the ballots are out in the state of Oregon, and it's a mail-in ballot election here. And hopefully you've had a chance now to look through your ballot and the voter's pamphlet and do your research and your investigation, pray over it, and make your choice. Well, one of the heated races now is the race for governor in the state of Oregon. Everybody thought that John Kitzhaber would be easily reelected. Well, not so. Now it's a horse race right up to the end, primarily because the governor has got a lot of issues that are now slowly turning into scandals. Well, we had a chance earlier to talk to his Republican rival, Dennis Richardson, who is the Republican candidate for governor of the state of Oregon. So join me now as we talk to Representative Dennis Richardson. Well, what an honor to have in the studio with us today, Representative Dennis Richardson, who's the Republican candidate for the state of Oregon governorship. The governor. Nice. How are you? Good to see you, man. And you look pretty good for down to the last minute.
For 15 months.
Yeah.
Full time.
You've been going at it full time, haven't you?
Since Pioneer Day, July 24th, 2013, it's been full time.
Wow. Well, the ballots are out.
That's right.
And there's no excuse not to vote, right?
The number one deciding factor will be the turnout of those that care about our economy and about education and about the corruption that we're seeing in the governor's office. The conservatives, the God-fearing people need to vote.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of liberals that are not going to be voting for this governor because they're just done with him.
Yeah.
But it's going to be about our turnout that makes the difference.
Well, you'd think 12 years would be enough.
I think so. I mean, he wants another term. I mean, in China, they call that a dynasty.
Yeah.
Wow. It's not Oregon.
Well, listen, I know this is hard to talk about, but it seems that his personal problems are just now are insurmountable. How can he govern?
Well, he is a huge problem because he's viewing Sylvia Hayes as a fiancée, and he's also the governor. So he has a responsibility to her, and he also has a responsibility to all the citizens, and he's chosen to try and protect her, even though it's corrupt. He doesn't think it's a problem that she tripled her income just last year by receiving payments from companies that wanted access to the government.
Right.
She doesn't see it as a problem. He doesn't see it's a problem that his advisor on the CRC, the bridge project, collected over $550,000 from the general contractor on that project while she's giving advice to the governor.
Wow.
He thinks that's okay. I say, no, that's not okay. That's corruption.
Wow. And I guess it'll just have to evolve and see what comes out of this. But it has popped up at the tail end of this campaign. People are now shaking their head and saying, wait a minute, time out. We don't need it. We don't need this on top of a state that doesn't seem to be friendly to business and all the other issues that are going on.
That's right. I mean, our economy is in the tank. All of the states around us are doing much better than we are. We've had high unemployment, higher than the national average for 18 years, which means we don't have enough jobs.
Right.
I mean, 4 of our kids have had to move to other states to get decent jobs.
Wow.
We have 1 in 5 Oregonians on food stamps. That's not acceptable.
Wow.
Since he was the Senate president and the governor in the 90s, Oregon's gone from 22nd in per capita income to 33rd. We're like $8,000 a year less income than Washington State's employees. It's just not working for us.
All right, and cover Oregon. What a debacle. And I guess we're going to have to default to the federal system, right? And
that's right.
And that's supposed to be an improvement.
The federal system is excited about what's happened in Oregon because Oregon's failure makes them look good. Realize they're going to have to re-enroll every person who got a policy from Cover Oregon. And the governor says, we've added 350,000 new policyholders or insureds in Oregon, but he fails to mention the vast majority of them are Medicaid. And we were signing up people for the Oregon Health Plan, for a couple decades. So it's not about Cover Oregon. Cover Oregon is an abject failure. It's a waste. He refused to manage it like he should. The CRC Bridge Project, Cover Oregon's $300 million, the CRC Bridge Project, $190 million, and his cronies got paid, but we still don't have a bridge.
We're pushing basically $500 million here on his policies gone down the drain. There's not that I mean, you got nothing to show for it. There's nothing on the table that shows we spent $500 million and there's something tangible you can point to.
Yeah, and he's hidden it so much. In fact, remember when he said, we're taking responsibility for Cover Oregon and I'm firing some people? One person that got fired was a woman named Triz De La Rosa, and she said, you're not going to hurt my reputation with this. I'm not a fall person for you. I'm going to sue you. So they paid her hush money, $67,000 for her agreement not to sue and not to talk about the governor, or Cover Oregon.
Now, was that hush money our tax dollars?
Oh, it's tax dollars, absolutely. He doesn't see anything wrong with that. It's all about him. I mean, the guy acts like an aristocrat, not like a servant of the people.
All right, so we got a failed governor and a failed leadership, and now, you know, we're the ones that, I say we, Oregonians, elected him again. You know, so we're 12 years into this thing. It doesn't work. As you were to prioritize, and I know jobs is right up there, what do you plan to do to get business hiring more people and stopping businesses going to Nevada and down to Texas and coming to Oregon?
Well, first you have to identify what your burdens are, what the barriers are that prevent Oregon business from expanding.
Land use laws is one of them.
Land use laws is one, permitting is one, the delays, the costs, all of these things have just developed because there's no oversight to it. Then you also need a governor who is the ambassador for Oregon businesses. I mean, the way that you create jobs in the private sector is by expanding the demand for products and services. You expand your GDP, and that requires more people to meet the demand. That creates jobs. And so I will be the ambassador for our state. I want to name right out of the chute a lieutenant governor from my office whose sole job will be to go to our foreign trade partners and develop greater demand for Oregon products and services. And then I'll go over and be the closer on those things. But we need an office in China. We need to have a place for consumers and businesses in China to know about Oregon and to buy our products and services, as well as other countries. And we need to have somebody going to other states. I mean, Rick Perry's done a good job with this in Texas.
But he's done the first thing first, and that was he got regulation out of the way and he opened up land use.
Right.
What can we do in that area?
Depends on who is in charge of the House and the Senate. And as governor, I have to deal with the reality of power. I mean, there's a saying that I mention that is, good intentions are often thwarted by the failure to consider the reality of power. And so if the same leaders are in charge of the House and the Senate, then I'm going to have to work with them on getting those things done that we can get done. And land use will be low on their agenda. If we have the ability for me to find out what they want and negotiate with them, possibly we can go to a regional land use system, which would make a whole lot more sense than what we've got now with Salem making determinations for the whole state.
It appears now, going into this midterm election, that you could get a turnover in the House and the Senate's in play. Your thoughts on that? Or do you feel that? I mean, you're traveling the whole state. Do you get the feel for that?
It's uncertain, but I believe it can happen. It depends on the turnout. I mean, when people get fed up with the governor, they go out and vote. They might as well vote for, you know, to turn over the incumbency. When you get fed up, then often what you do is you go and you say, we're just going to start fresh. And so that's the attitude that I think we're having in the state. We'll see what happens on November 4th, but I'm planning. One of the avenues is that we'll have a Republican as in charge of the House and Republicans in charge of the Senate and a Republican governor, which will give us the opportunity to go through the system and determine what are those things that are causing our education system to be next to the last in graduation rates and our economy to be in the doldrums and our high unemployment rates, and what can we do to clean up the governor's office and remove the fraud, waste, abuse, the corruption, the scandals that has plagued Oregon and made us a national joke.
Every proposed program that would result in some kind of a fee increase or even a tax increase is always attached to education. Always attached. Well, we're going to go in and clean up the forest, and some of that money is going to go to education. You know the drill. Everything gets attached to it, but yet here we are down. What more money do they need, and what would it solve?
Well, I don't define success in education by how much money you throw at the problem.
Right.
I define it by what are your outcomes and what kind of resources do you need to obtain those outcomes. And so we don't know what that price tag is. The quality education model is thrown out there, but that is something that was done, you know, more than a decade ago, and it's still used. We need to look at the top education systems in Oregon, where they have nearly 100% graduation rate, and there's a number of them, and at the top education systems and high achievement education programs all across the country. We can learn from the successes and failures of others. We should have evidence-based reform, and then that reform will have a price tag. And whatever it's going to take for us to implement the kind of education system that will give our students in Oregon a world-class education, that's what we're going to need to pay. We don't know what that is yet, but it's not just about more money. It's about the strategic use of the resources that we have.
Why do you think then we're so low? What's the problem?
We're so low because we're not meeting the needs of students. It's about protecting the status quo. I mean, when you have next to the highest dropout rate, realize almost a third of Oregon students are not graduating with their classmates. They're not dropping out because they love school. They're not dropping out because it's meeting their needs. It's the opposite. And so basically now we're focusing almost 100% of our attention on getting kids ready to go to college, and less than 25% actually do it. And so what about the other 75%? What about the need for us to have training in the trades and shops and art and music and areas where people can make a living without having to go to college? So you need to have both, but you need to focus on the outcomes you want for all students.
I've heard some research organizations say that the average student coming out of high school in Oregon is not prepared to go to college. In fact, they need some kind of interim help to get them to go to college level, and they want a lot of money to go there. Why are we spending money there? Why aren't we producing students who are prepared to go to college? Is this part of the Common Core or the current curriculum? What's the deal here?
Well, Common Core is going to is just another federally backed program that completely avoids input from parents, teachers, and local school districts. It eliminates local control in any way. We've been trying to control it from Salem. Now we're going to let it be controlled in Washington, D.C. The people that understand the students best are those that are closest to them. And so the state needs to provide the outcomes and resources to help accomplish those. We need to reward those that do the best and help those that are not achieving it to learn from those that are. And so it's a different approach from what we've had in the past. I'm going to have to work with the unions to make it happen, but they are tired also of John Kitzhaber. People may not realize this. The Oregon Education Association, the OEA, the teachers union, is not endorsing Kitzhaber. They're not giving him any money in the primary, they didn't, and they're not in the general election, although they were a key component to him winning in 2010. They're done with Kitzhaber.
Wow. All right, let me take a quick break. We'll be right back with Dennis Richardson, and he is the Republican candidate for governor for the state of Oregon. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Okay. We're back with Representative Dennis Richardson, and he is the Republican candidate for governor for the state of Oregon. You served in the House how many years?
11 years.
11 years, and ended up being the budget hawk. Everybody in Salem will tell you, if there's anybody that understands the budgeting process in the state of Oregon, Representative Richardson had his thumb on the pulse. He just gets it. I want to go over to some of the ballot measures. There's some really interesting ones over there. Measure 90, open primaries. I think now both major parties are saying no. I've gotten emails from fairly known Republican leaders to say yes. Your thoughts?
I think that we should vote for it because I've looked ahead, and what we're going to end up with is a three-party system with, if we stay in the course as we are presently, there'll be Democrats, Republicans, and the Independent Party. And the Independent Party and the Republicans are most closely aligned. And so I believe it's going to ensure that the Democrats win in the future once we get to that three-party system. And the open primary says, let's recognize the fact that a third of Oregon voters are not affiliated with the Democrats and Republicans. Let's let them vote as well as everyone else, so that we have two candidates going in the general election. Those two candidates will be a Democrat and a Republican. And so I think that it recognizes the need for everyone to have a chance to vote. It makes the primaries relevant again. And I think long term, it's going to be good for conservatives and liberals, because there will be a choice between one of each.
How come the two major parties are not endorsing it?
Because there's the feeling that anything that lessens party power is not good. And you know, I used to be against it as well, but I've just looked ahead. I said, no, where are we going? And what's going to be the best for our state? And I believe that an open primary makes sense. I'm going to vote for it. It's not a burning issue to me. It's just one of those things that I would support. Measure
91, marijuana. It's been a mess in Washington. It's a mess in Colorado. I heard ads over the weekend of mothers that are for it. I'm trying to figure out who they are and where they come from and who's paying for them to say that. It appears to me it's real close. You feel that?
That's what I've heard as far as the polling is concerned. I think it would be wise to vote it down. I think Oregon is not ready for it. If we're going to do it, let's wait a couple of years and watch the fallout with Washington and Colorado, so that we don't make the same mistakes that they're making.
Don't you think there's enough fallout now?
Well, I personally do.
Yeah.
As governor, if it goes through and passes, I'm going to implement it, because that's the oath I take. And if that's the will of the people, we're going to do it. I don't think it's wise to go forward with it. I think that the scientific studies that have just come out showing the negative impact on the developing adolescent brain is very disturbing. The addiction rates is very disturbing. And it doesn't make sense as far as I'm concerned, but
at the last I looked, it's still a mind-altering drug.
Well, there is. Plus,
I mean, why are we even playing around with this?
Here's something that people may not even consider. Yeah. I think in 4 to 6 years, if this goes through, the #1 lobbying influence, meaning money, is going to be the marijuana industry, because there's so much money to be made in this that they will end up having a tremendous influence on all future laws relating to drugs, because they will pick and fund campaigns of legislators that they want.
Okay, and the other one that's going to draw a lot of people to the polls, it was a big issue down here in Southern Oregon, as you well know, in the primary, and that's the GMO one, Measure 92. It's a different bill on this ballot than it was in Jackson County. I'm still not, I have not decided on that. It's not the same thing that was down here. What's your thinking on that one?
Well, yeah, the GMO issue is different than the GMO labeling issue. And sometimes when I really don't know which way to go, I say, okay, so what is the principle? And if the principle is having people be knowledgeable about what's contained in their products, then I'm okay with labeling. So I'll vote in favor of it. I think the whole GMO issue needs to be based on rational science and not on emotion.
Yeah. But if it's just a labeling issue, what's the problem? I mean, you saw the ads against it, and all that money, by the way, is out-of-state money. That ought to be a flag warning right there. Yeah. All right. So you've been in all 36 counties. You've been in several debates. You got one more coming up
tonight. It's 7 o'clock,
and it's on another channel here in town. But we'll roll with it, Channel 5. What do you think? Of all the things that you're looking at, how does it prioritize in your mind as you talk to the people?
Jobs in the economy is the #1 issue. And these debates have been very helpful, because they allow people to see Kitzhaber and myself. We don't know what the questions are going to be beforehand. We have to answer. My job is to do two things. One is to show the reality of where he is. It's not about what you say, Governor. It's about what you've done. This is not two people running for governor. He wants a 4th term. And so if he hasn't been able to accomplish these things he wants to do in the next 4 years, in the past 12 years, why should he get 4 more years? And so the debates have been helpful. The high unemployment, the lack of jobs, the despondency that people in rural Oregon feel about not being represented by a governor who spends his time 3/4 of his time in Portland and only 1/4 of his time in Salem, but he doesn't take care of the rest of the state. There's a big issue. Education. We're losing a generation of our kids. And whether you're Democrat or Republican, it's about being able to make sure that our kids have a fair chance for the future. And then the scandals have been the icing on the cake. It's like fraud, waste, abuse, wasting hundreds of millions of dollars, scandals of involving the first lady, who's his fiancée. She's not even, they're not even married. The whole issue about her taking money from companies that want access to the governor, and she doesn't think that's anything that's wrong with that, and he doesn't. This is a guy who's out of touch.
It seems to me that if it can be proven, and I'm assuming from the way you're saying it, that there are companies out there that actually gave her money to buy influence. If that testimony comes to light, it's over.
Well, it should be.
He's violated his office, and she certainly has broken the law.
He's complicit with unethical behavior. And there's really no question about it. The Willamette Weekly is with Nigel Jaquith. He's a guy, he's a Pulitzer Prize winning research investigative reporter. Right. He does his homework. And he's brought forth, he shows us the contracts. She entered into contracts as a consultant for energy and economic development companies. And the only reason that they would have her in that position is because she has direct access to the governor. She's spoken at different events while getting paid by the companies, but she represented herself as the first lady and the senior advisor to the governor. That kind of mixing between official position and getting paid and not disclosing who's paying you, that's corruption. That's what we have laws against that. And the governor says, no, she's just a professional woman doing her job.
All right. You got to get this outside of being a semantical argument. This is a legal argument, right?
That's true.
And why isn't the Attorney General sticking her nose in here?
Well, the Attorney General is in cahoots with our governor. She wouldn't even defend the marriage issue when she'd taken an oath to defend the will of the people, and the people had voted on that. She's got to live with herself on what she does and doesn't do, but we can't expect her to be proactive in favor of the people and the people's interests, because that's not what she's done in the past.
One other issue before we run out of time, and that is the illegal immigrant issue, whether it relates to driver's licenses or social benefits, and services. You guys kind of sparred over that, but then again, you kind of agreed on a couple of things. What's your position?
Well, my position is that, one, I have a heart. I understand that it is very difficult for some families that have been here a long time that are here illegally to be able to get around without being able to drive. But our country and our state is based on the rule of law. And we have immigrants that have gone through the process, have paid the price, and are here legally and deserve to be able to have the privileges. We don't just change the law for one group of people because we think that it's a nice thing to do. It undermines the whole concept that we have laws and that we're expected to keep those laws.
All right, so is there any way to solve this problem? Because there's certain parts of the workforce that wants these people.
Well, certainly it's a federal issue, and the federal government needs to close the border and have a rational approach to allow people to be here to work.
Right.
I have no problem with people being here to work. We need employment. We need employees. It's when they're here illegally, they don't pay taxes, they work without a Social Security number, or they use somebody else's. It's about having a rational approach. We need a governor who'll be back in D.C. fighting to get that for our country.
Ebola, big issue. If you were governor, this is hypothetical, would you stop flights into Oregon from those countries?
Hypothetically, the answer is, if I could, yes. I believe that we should limit the accessibility to those that may carry it. There may be ways to work it. You could say, if you have had a quarantine for 25 days or something like that before you fly here. There's things that can be done. Just an
open flight. it seems like the Portland International Airport is just waiting to happen.
Yeah, there's only 4 hospitals in the country that are currently prepared to deal with this kind of a patient. They say, well, we'll go to the hospital. There's only 4 that are certified. I think the governor should take action to make sure that there's a 5th one, and that it's at Oregon Health Sciences University in Portland. We need to ensure that we're prepared for what could happen. You don't want to be a week late on this one. Even though it costs money, we need to prepare as if it's inevitable, because you'd rather be 5 years early than a week late.
All right, Cover Oregon's a mess. We've been there. We know we're going to have to default to the federal system. Do you see any solution to this out there? Do you sense anything at the federal level that could impact us back in Oregon?
Well, on Cover Oregon, realize this is about signing people up for individual policies in small groups. The federal government is doing that for the majority of the states already. So we need to shut it down, move that over there, and then that goes forward. Now the entire medical
and write the
system,
$300 million off.
Yeah, there's no choice.
Okay.
It's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, they have wasted it. We're already going back to the federal system. He just denies the culpability for it. And so that money is gone. I mean, can you imagine piling $300 million and coming out there with a blowtorch and watching it flame up?
Yeah.
That's how much benefit we've gotten from this. It's a tragedy. It was unnecessary.
And yet, Alan Bates, Senator Bates, he's a great person, and I've had him on the show, and he defends it. He says it's working, and it will work. And I'm going, yeah, who's buying that, and who's it working for?
It is blatantly not true. Cover Oregon is not working. Cover Oregon was about signing people up on the website, and they never signed a person, not one person up, all the way through on the Oregon website. It is the worst failure of all the websites and all the health insurance exchanges across the country. And to say it works now, it still isn't working. You know, we can sign up people for Medicaid through the Oregon Health Authority, and Cover Oregon needs to be shut down and cut our losses. We continue to spend money on it. We don't need to be doing that.
Well, Representative Richardson, best to you over the next couple of days. The ballots are out. By the way, DennisRichardson.com is his website. Let me encourage you to go there, and if you want to support him, you can support him there. Last minute, whatever you want to say to this audience about not only voting, but voting for you.
Well, first of all, this is our season. This is our time. This is our election. We can restore pride in Oregon as a state and in its future. We can have the chance to change our course for jobs and the economy, improve our education system, and restore confidence and trust and integrity to the governor's office. But it means everyone must vote, and you get other people to vote as well. It's like, you know, 5 smooth stones, you know. Each of these are people that you get to vote. Yeah. So let's help make sure that 5 other people vote and ask them to get other people to vote. If they want to volunteer, they can contact us a 3-hour period of time to help call people that often don't get around to voting. We must ensure turnout. That is the key to this election.
All right. And again, that's DennisRichardson.com. Best to you, my friend. Good to see you again.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, Representative Dennis Richardson. Well, coming up next, here's a big question. Will America fail? Well, we have the author of that book, and also he did a YouTube that went viral. We'll talk to him about that. And the next question is the future leadership of America, well, is it in good hands? We'll talk about that next here on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Welcome back. Delighted to have with us today Ryan Houck. He is the author of Will America Fail? And of course, he is the head of the National Free Market Watchdog Group, Free Market America, and the writer and producer and the voice of numerous videos. Perhaps you've caught some of his YouTube videos, including the overnight YouTube phenomenon, If I Wanted America to Fail. In fact, that had over close to 3 million hits instantly. So quite the question. Hey, Ryan, nice to see you. How you doing, my friend?
Good to be with you, Perry. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, first of all, why did you take this topic on? What is it that interests you?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm better known for my pessimism than my optimism. And for your viewers who have seen If I Wanted America to Fail, they'll know why. It depicts a bleak, seemingly pessimistic vision of America's future. And I will confess that I was one of the many conservatives who thought that Barack Obama's re-election was the final nail in our coffin. But I was consumed by one really big question. Why did my generation, the so-called millennials, a generation so demonstrably harmed by this president's policies, twice send him to the White House? And that led to others. Are we living in China's century? The values of our founders obsolete? And ultimately, will America fail? And the answers that I got surprised me. And so this book is about a pessimist becoming something of an optimist.
Wow. The first part about it, pessimism, is your generation pessimistic?
You know, surprisingly, you would think they'd have every reason to be, given the Great Recession and the economic doldrums and the presidency of Barack Obama, which has been riddled with false promises and big government failures. But this generation is more optimistic than any other generation. Now, that's part of being young, but I think they're looking for candidates and causes that tell them they've got a future. Now, that's taken a hit in the last few years, but they are somewhat at odds with the rest of the country in terms of their optimism for the future.
So what are they optimistic about when the person they thought was going to be the turnaround ended up being the hammer?
You know, that's exactly it. What's happened with Barack Obama's presidency is there was no New Deal. There was no new consensus, no 1,000-year reign of liberalism, which they were promised. Barack Obama will be remembered for the big promises he made as a candidate and the big failures as president. While millennials figured out Barack Obama couldn't so much as change a light bulb, they watched free enterprise change the world. And so now, when you take a deep dive into the data, what you'll find is that millennials are more likely to say businesses strike a fair balance between profits and the public interest. They're more likely to want to start a business than prior generations, more likely to say that businesses are overtaxed, because they've seen free market entrepreneurs change the world while they watched the social movement and the political campaign and big government fail to do so. And that's the opportunity for conservatives.
Do you think millennials have the patience to turn this thing around?
You know, I know the joke on millennials, a bunch of flip-flop sporting, hoodie-wearing, tech-addled narcissists too addicted to their Facebook and Minecraft and munching Hot Pockets all day from the comfort of the parents' basement with their endless supply of participation trophies. Can they look up and pay attention for 5 minutes? I think one of the great things about technology is that even though this is the first generation to wrap itself in technology, and it's got some really irritating side effects, it's made them impatient. And it's made them believe in the problem-solving power of free enterprise. They've also used technology to open doors where government has slammed windows shut through regulation and bad laws and things like Obamacare and so forth. So I think part of the thing that recommends this generation is the entrepreneurial drive and the energy that comes from technology and things like it. Don't get me wrong, it can be irritating at times when you're at dinner and everybody's on their phone. But I think that ultimately this is something that benefits our culture because it opens up media. I mean, we're talking via Skype right now, something that wouldn't have been possible if we were limited to the 3 networks a generation ago. So I think ultimately it's good.
All right. But millennials use media different than the older generation does. You consume it differently, and so there seems to be a fairly big gap there.
No, that's true. Technology has worked its way up the generational totem pole to some extent, but you're right. I mean, while I was writing this book, I was listening to music. I was kind of watching TV in the background. I mean, I multitasked, and now you've got people saying that the average millennial is spending 18 hours a day consuming media. Doesn't mean they're only consuming media. It means they're consuming some form of media while they're doing something else. And like I said, it has really irritating side effects like being absorbed in your phone or something like that. One of the benefits of it is the fragmentation of this media. Now you can get news sources and have the best, most lively debates are taking place right now outside of the 3 major networks and the staid, print news of yesteryear. And ultimately, I think that's good for our culture and for the body politic.
All right, so what do you see, Ryan, as the hope and maybe the challenge of America in the future?
The biggest challenge we're going to face is on the decay and decline of the American family. The good news is that across generations, people seem to think this is a very serious issue, but I worry how my generation will handle it. So I think that's the greatest fear. The greatest opportunity is that this generation is at least as entrepreneurial as any to precede it. It's more interested in using free enterprise as the vehicle for its ambitions than it is government, politics, or the social movement. And that's good for us in the long run. I think even the surliest curmudgeon has to acknowledge that we will have an easier time fixing this country than our founding fathers did building it.
Whoa. What about the challenge of what now would be under this particular administration trying to regulate everything as a challenge to squelch that entrepreneurial spirit that supposedly your generation has? They want to control it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that hasn't gone unnoticed. Bottom line is that when they elected Barack Obama in 2008, 3 in 10 millennials say the government should do more to solve big problems. Now 7 in 10 say it shouldn't play an active role in our daily lives.
Yeah.
You've had a total reversal in the view of government. Now anything big, whether it's big government, big unions, big business, is bad. And ultimately, even though that has some side effects, it's probably good. It's going to mean that we're going to have an appetite to fix things that currently you can't fix. 86% of millennials say they favor private accounts for Social Security, that's the third rail of American politics. There's no other generation that supports that. 74% say they support market-based solutions in Medicare. Wow. These are sacred cows that no other generation is willing to touch, but millennials are interested in solving these problems because this is the generation that flavors its own sodas and designs its own sneakers, builds its own playlists. They're all about personal freedom, and if conservatives can talk to them about those economic matters, we'll have a chance.
Wow. I can tell right now I'm going to have you back several times because you're hitting on a lot of cylinders here. So, in the future, the question has to be asked, will it belong to China or to the United States?
You know, I did a lot of research. This was the one that kept me up at night. I think, and in the book, Will America Fail, goes into this in great detail, but I think China's biggest problem is also its most counterintuitive, and that's too few people. It's got a demographic crisis that will begin to manifest in the 2030s. And at the same time, China's been buying our debt. They've been growing their own. They now have as much privately backed debt, which is implicitly backed by the government, as we do nationally. And that's going to create a big problem for them down the road because it's going to show up in the form of slower growth. China's like a car that has to go 100 miles an hour, and if it goes below it, it blows up, and all of the deep social fissures in the country will become manifest. That's going to mean a whole different issue for millennials when they take the reins of our country than our baby boom parents are facing right now with China.
Wow.
But there's a lot of interesting things happening on the horizon between China and the United States, and there's no doubt it'll be the most important relationship of the 21st century.
Wow. If they call the note, what do we do? Give them California?
I'm for that. I'd vote for that.
Hey, can I get you back? I'm fascinated by all this because I think a lot of it, I know that you deal in your book, Millennials and Media, and I did read that chapter. I'm going, man, you have hit the nail on the head, and I'd love to have you back and unpack that a little bit.
I'd love to come back and talk about it.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Blessings on you. I'll talk to you soon. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back, and our special guest is Corey Falls, and he is a candidate for Jackson County Sheriff in kind of unusual circumstance because his opponent has announced his retirement. So it looks like Corey will be the next Jackson County Sheriff. And nice to see you. How you doing, friend?
Thank you. Thank you for having me on this morning, Perry.
Yeah, you bet. And you are a Southern Oregon homegrown person.
I am. I grew up in the Valley. I grew up in Rouge and moved here in the late 70s with my family and went to Rouge School, went to Grace Christian Elementary School, and then McLaughlin, and graduated from South Medford High School.
Well, good. And you currently serve as?
I'm the Deputy Chief of Police in the City of Ashland right now.
City of Ashland.
Yes.
So, law enforcement career. So what made you pursue this position in the first place, to go for Jackson County Sheriff?
Sure, just to have a big impact on the county in general and law enforcement. I had that desire, especially growing up as a kid in the Valley,
right.
that intrigued me, the impact that a sheriff can have in law enforcement. I worked for the sheriff's office in Washington, which is the third largest sheriff's office in Washington, and was really intrigued by the county sheriff and deputies and that type of work. So that was a big pull also.
At the end of the day, you're the top cop. The way the structure comes down, and if there is any kind of a crisis, everybody diverts to the county sheriff. That's quite a responsibility.
And that's something I look forward to also. And I've built a strong foundation in my law enforcement career to prepare myself for those types of situations.
So how do you think the county looks, in the Jackson County Sheriff Department looks right now? What's your assessment of it today? Well,
when you compare it to other counties, it looks great.
Yeah.
Because a lot of our surrounding counties aren't doing as well. But in terms of our equipment at the sheriff's office, it's really good, and they've certainly just built a new facility within the last couple of years for the deputies out in White City, and that is nice to have a newer facility.
Some have said perhaps one of the best built and equipped sheriff's department in the whole state. Would you agree with that?
It could be. I certainly haven't looked at all the metro county sheriff's offices. We often compare our Jackson County to our surrounding agencies that are really faltering, and like I said, that makes us look really good. But I think it's really good, but I haven't really got in depth into some of the metro counties up by Portland.
You want to make any changes?
Certainly.
Such as?
Well, first thing I'd like to do when I get in there is there's some relationships that need to be repaired within the organization and within the community, and this is what I've learned as I've gone out and campaigned. So just repairing relationships. Need to reevaluate resources, and the third thing is require a level of professionalism for Jackson County.
The Sheriff's Department, because of our surrounding areas and lack of funds, you're called to, I mean, it's a big area to cover. You think it's adequately covered?
From getting out and campaigning, and I've been to every small city in the Upper Rogue, they would like to see more rural patrols. They would like to see more of a presence from our sheriff's deputies, and they see that lack of, and I would like to bring some ideas to help that out.
What are the biggest challenges you see?
Biggest challenges is, like I said before, repairing relationships. And just the culture change of the different level of professionalism that I'll bring.
How are we doing on the marijuana issue and the growing of marijuana, and now the potential of this law passing? I mean, what's that going to do to you guys?
That's going to be interesting. Of course, we'll follow the law, whatever is passed. I don't think that the change in marijuana laws is going to impact the black market as much. We're still going to have to look into that because there's so much money to be made. Grows they seem to come and go. Some years there's a lot, and some years they're not. So it's something that constantly has to be looked at and worked on collectively.
Okay. Are we prepared for emergencies here?
We're getting prepared for emergencies, and the emergency management falls under the sheriff's office now, which is I think is a good thing. One thing you have to be careful of when emergency management falls under the sheriff's office, because historically in most counties it falls under the county government, and that's important because emergency management encompasses more than just law enforcement. Your public health, you know, we're looking at Ebola right now, and some of these other things that encompass all of county government. So it's bringing all those resources together to make sure that collectively we're working together to solve whatever comes at us. So the
protocol would be if there's a county emergency, whatever level it is, you're in charge.
I'm in charge. Our county emergency, actually most county emergency falls under the county administrator.
Right.
And then they're housed in the sheriff's office right now. So I would see it as a partnership working with Mr. Jordan in whatever the management would be.
Okay. Right, so here we go, and it's a big county. We have our issues, but for the most part, it seems like we are well equipped. You want to say you want to reassess some of the resources. you see an issue there?
Certainly, there's supervisors that aren't supervising people. I think that's a problem that we need to take a hard look at. I'm not quite sure we have enough detectives. There's certainly a lot of cases that our detective division is not able to get to. That certainly needs to be looked at.
How big of a force are you going to oversee? There's
165 budget employees for the 2015 budget.
Okay, and how many of those are active deputies out in the field?
So out of that, you have your 46 approximately deputies, which encompasses your deputies and patrol. In addition to that 46, you also have 2 additional positions for your tactical narcotics team and 8 additional positions for White City that pays a special district fund for that. So and then your commanders. So you have about 60 total deputies, and then you have about 65 corrections deputies, which is another thing that has to be taken a look at.
So you want to increase those numbers a little bit?
I don't know. I don't think we have to go and increase. I'm not looking to increase anything right now. I'm looking to be more efficient with the bodies we have.
The jail, adequate, needs more space?
Well, I'm hesitant to say we need more jail space. Certainly they did a study with the National Institute of Corrections, did a study about 10 years ago that said we probably needed about 600 beds for this county.
No, we don't.
And
600
and I'm guessing
that's a small prison.
I'm guessing if we had that many beds, it would probably be full. But the things we need to look at is the impact to our force releases on the community. Mostly that is in the city of Medford, why people are going to jail, how that impacts crime. Those are the things that I want to dive in and take a look at.
Wow. Okay, because I don't know, where do you go? Where do you go with the jail? Where do you go for growth? You've maxed out down there, aren't you?
Yes, and they just added, I want to say about 60 new jail beds down in the basement.
Yeah.
And that'll help a little bit. We also need to start talking about, just as a criminal justice environment together, what are we doing with mental health courts? What can we do with drug courts? Are there other things we can do collectively as a criminal justice system to help lessen that impact of the jail?
Yeah. All right, so unless something really weird happens, you'll be the next sheriff.
Well,
I mean, what could happen?
I don't know what could happen. This is my first time running, so
well, I mean, given the circumstances, I mean, Mike's going to retire out, so he finishes his term through January. All right, so that ends that term. And even though he's on the ballot, he may get a few votes, but at the end of the day, is he really a candidate? He's not a candidate, is he?
He absolutely is a candidate.
He is a candidate.
He's made it clear that if he's reelected, he's going to serve another term.
I did not hear that. Because I was asked that question on the air this morning, and I thought, well, he's announced his retirement, so I didn't know how that...
No, it was an odd retirement announcement. He announced that he was retiring, and in that announcement, he said that he was supporting me for sheriff. But he said, if I'm reelected, I will serve another 4 terms.
I did not hear that part.
So for us, that didn't change what we were doing. We were just going to continue campaigning the rest of the way. And November 4th, we'll know who's the next county sheriff.
What's your role now in Ashland? What do you do? I mean,
our deputy chiefs, we have 2 of them now. We just promoted a second one in January 1. Prior to that, I was the lone deputy chief, which was the number 2 person in charge of the police department. Fortunately for me, I've overseen every aspect of a police department. The support division, the detectives, the patrol officers.
Wow.
I'm in charge of budget and internal investigations, holding people accountable, contract negotiations, a lot of the management things that a lot of police officers don't like to do.
Book work.
Yes. It's just the day-to-day management cycles of running a law enforcement agency.
Well, Corey, you're a delight. How do people get a hold if they want to know about your candidacy? Because the ballots are out. A lot of people are filling them out. What do they do?
A couple ways. My website, CoreyFallsThe4Sheriff.com.
Yeah.
They can read more about me, about my experience and credentials. They can also, through that website, get a hold of me on Facebook and through my email.
Okay. Best to you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in. Okay, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.